Welcome to Grown Folk Talking. Express yourself. The podcast will begin momentarily. Muted.
Once again, welcome to the podcast. One song we're going to play, and then we're going to get started. Stick around. Once again, welcome to the podcast, my friends. Once again, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you with us this evening. Monday, you could have been anywhere else, but you're here with us this evening. We're glad that you decided to join us this evening. And once again, welcome to the podcast, my friends. It is From Poverty to Prosperity tonight. That is our podcast. Xtra-Hype Connection. You joined us, and we're definitely glad that you're with us this evening. So once again, without further ado, my friends, thank you for joining us. And we want to let you know tonight we've got a very, very interesting and thought-provoking topic for you this evening, all right? So, as is custom, I'm only going to take a minute. I promise. I'm only going to take a minute to do this. Not going to be late with the point. We're going to get right into the podcast this evening. So, we want to shout out to some local businesses really quickly that support our podcast, and then we want to get right into the topic tonight because this is something that is going to be thought-provoking. I'm going to ask you to really, really try to catch what we're saying here tonight. Very important, especially moving forward. So, putting you on game, all right? So, local businesses that support this podcast, I want to shout out Konos Restaurant at 16 Clinton Street, right here in the heart of Newark, New Jersey. Some of the best cuisine that I've eaten and others have ever seen. So make sure you stop into them and let them know that you heard about them from the podcast. Also, we got AJ's Caribbean Taste at 150 Halsey Street. Within the Prudential Life Insurance Plaza, that's right, Halsey Street, number 150, near Bank Street, that's the cross street. Make sure you go inside, check out all the delights and all of the aromas inside AJ Caribbean Taste. Let them know you heard about them from the podcast right here. We also got the Fruit House at 764 Broad Street, Newark, New Jersey. You got Isamar and you got Johan. They're the ones that own and operate the Fruit House with their herbs and spices, their hot drinks and cold drinks, teas, coffees, cold-pressed juices, smoothies. They've also got fruits, vegetables, and other things such as sea moss. They've got ginger. They've got lemons. They've got limes. They've got other things to your delight and surprise and good things for your body, spirit, and mind. Check them out. The Fruit House at 764 Broad Street right here in Newark, New Jersey. And last but not least, we got Halsey News at 2 Prudential Drive, Newark, New Jersey. Monday to Friday, open from 9 to 5. When you walk in, say hello to a very lovely lady. Her name is Shahida. She'll be definitely glad to meet you and greet you on your way to work or coming back or at lunchtime. So make sure you stop in and say hello at Halsey News at 2 Prudential Drive, Newark, New Jersey, and let her know that you heard about Halsey News on the podcast right here, all right? Xtra-Hype Connection, and we're glad to have you once again, everybody. And right now, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get right into the topic for you. Hold on, let me do. Give me a moment. There we go. All right.
Unmuted.
There we go. All right, everybody. Unmuted the lines. Definitely want to have a dialogue tonight. So let us bring you this topic. All right, we've done this before, but this is a part 2. We were going to go ahead and chime in on this again and address it, but now we're back, so get ready. If you remember the last time we held this podcast, it was about when you only get half the story. When you only get half the story. This is part 2. And as a subtopic, we're going to talk about the land of make-believe revisited. The land of make-believe revisited. When you only get half the story. These are some of the things that happen. Not that can happen, but that do happen. We're going to talk about that this evening, and we're going to talk about a way to actually deal with this. So, without further ado, I know that a lot of us here have heard of The television show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Quite sure that most of us do remember Mr. Rogers, his neighborhood. Remember him coming in and singing his song and changing his shoes and sneakers and taking off his jacket and putting on a sweater. He had a guy that was a delivery guy named Mr. McFeely. Always speedy delivery and all that great stuff, right? It had the people in his neighborhood, the chef, the restaurant, the dance school, the music school, everything, everything in the neighborhood. Okay, great. That was the real world. But when he got inside and he wasn't dealing with the real world and real people, he was dealing with this place called the Land of Make-Believe. And he had this little trolley train that rode on tracks and that would beat this little horn and go forward and back. And it would go into this tunnel and go into this place that he called the Land of Make-Believe. Now, the importance of the Land of Make-Believe is that the Land of Make-Believe is not a made-up fairy tale. It is a place that has been made up. That's true. But it is actually very real, and it affects everyone in some way, shape, or form. This day, it helps to form our opinions about education, about work, about finance, about religious beliefs, about historical events, about government and its role, and about relationships. Now, that can be a very broad topic, but let's kind of narrow it down just for this conversation here, and let's deal with close-knit relationships, spouses, dating couples, family units with offspring, children. I'm going to deal with that because offspring and children, although they are similar, are not the same. Mother and father, let's just say natural mother and father are much different from legal system mother and father, because those people in the legal system are known as parents, and also over in our realm of real life, we have parents known as mother, father. They're natural to us. But there's an adjective always when we're dealing with distinguishing one from another. So let's get into this a little bit, and I hope we get some great stuff out of this. So let me start here. We've been through some historical events, but we're going to come up to the present time today because there are some things that I think would be helpful for us to know. I'm not saying anybody has to. Nobody has to do anything. But I would say this: if you are interested, follow this up, what I'm saying. Look it up. Find it for yourself. Find out if I'm telling you right or not. And then draw your own conclusion. And then if you really are interested in being able to act for yourself and for those who are your closest loved ones, then I think it might be worth knowing this. All right. I hear you. We got a little background noise there. We can hear you, but if you could mute out for us for a moment, that'd be great. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, and no problem, Flofokuz, no problem. So, all right, everybody. So here we go. Now, where do we begin? Where do we begin? Let's begin right where we are. Now, everybody here knows that we got some interesting things going on. We got this whole thing with illnesses coming out of basically somewhere or nowhere that we know of that seem to be overtaking everywhere. And what happens when that happens? Well, we saw just not too long ago, maybe about 5, 6 years ago, the response to that was, all of you stay indoors. Keep apart from each other. About 6 feet, yeah, minimum. Impossible to do in some areas. Wear masks. Cover your eyes. Cover up. Wear gloves. Bring extra hand sanitizer with you. Don't talk to people too much. And don't stand too close together. Now, it has been known to me that germs and bacteria and viruses and all these other things, they tend to spread some way. Some are spread through direct contact, some are spread through the air. So there are at least 2 ways that these things can, attach themselves to people and do whatever they're going to do, whether they harm them or not. Depends on the person's immune system. That's just a given. We know that. But the thing that I wanted to talk about is not the fact that, people were trying to keep themselves away from these illnesses and germs, but it's the fear of the unknown that was guiding people's reaction to these things. I mean, if we think about it, when we were coming up and we were in school, when we were young, or any other place that we can remember, we got sick, we got colds, we got stuffy noses, sore throats, earaches, throat scratchy and irritated, stomach upset, fevers. We just had a whole lot of things sometimes that would happen to us, but our immune systems would kick in. And with a little bit of help, a little bit of orange juice, a little bit of lemonade, hot teas, a bit of ginger root sometimes, some salve, some, what are those things called? Toddies and poultices and all these other things, we'd be all right. We'd be okay. Get up, a couple of days, go out and play, go to school. All that good stuff, fine. But it was always the fear of something that we were not knowledgeable of. We didn't know exactly what it was that we were up against, nor where it came from, so that we could do any kind of homework and assess what are we up against. That is done, in my opinion, by design in many different situations. Okay, so let's go a little bit further here. Let's go a little bit further. Let's just say we have, our family, okay? You got your male, your dad, your female, your mom, yourself, of course, and siblings if you had them. I'm going to stop there. Now, as far as I can remember back, my parents, my mom and my dad, were the authority figures that I responded to. Okay? My mom, my dad said something. Okay. That's what it was. There was no other authority present at that time, physically, that I responded to or respected more than my mom and my dad. Because they're the ones that provided the place for us, the food for us to eat, the conveniences of light and heat and water and clothing and all this other stuff, right? Took us out, we'd go out, have a little fun, go bowling, go to the park, whatever. Okay. That was it. But then all of a sudden, it seemed that there was a little bit of encroachment here and there and here and there. And pretty soon, we were getting orders, authoritative orders from people who work in agency offices behind desks, filling out forms, going over applications, and then explaining some rules for receiving some type of benefit or some type of privilege, but also letting us know that you have to conform to this. You have to do this way. If you don't do it this way, then we'll take you right off of this and you won't get this, this, and this. Now, land of make-believe. With our families, I think that all of us today can realize and say that our family units have been broken, fractured, splintered, decimated, and in some cases, utterly destroyed. And there's always a finger pointing at someone saying, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. But the thing about that finger pointing is that it's back and forth. It's left and right, right and left. Everybody's pointing a finger at everybody else. And with that being the case, the whole family unit no longer is a unit. It's a splintered and fractured thing. It's not a family unit anymore. They're all separate pieces of a pie. But they're unequal pieces and they're not the same shape. Even that has been taken away. That's unclear. It's not clear cut and dry anymore. We don't even know what we're dealing with anymore. But we have rules being written as so-called policies, procedures, laws, and regulations. Now, I really don't remember laws and regulations governing the functioning of a home, because the law of the home was dependent on the two, the mother and the father. And the children were beneficiaries of the home and the parents. had a family trust there. So that was our own private domain. The home under the castle doctrine. You know, your home is your castle, it's your private domain. And when people want to enter, they have to obey the same, which are the rules of the house while they are visitors. There was no sweeping legislation that said, oh, we can come into your house any way we want to. Oh, yeah, you're standing on your porch. Well, we need to see your ID to verify who you are. Well, I'll just turn around and go in the house. You follow at your own peril and at your own risk. And that is still standing till this day, although it is overshadowed by some policy, rules, regulations, procedures, quote-unquote, laws. That say, oh, someone will say to you, oh, well, if you turn and walk away, then we have the right to pursue you. For what? That's always the issue. For what? The unknown. The unknown. What are you barging in here for? Why are you destroying property? To break and enter and come in and then illegally detain someone. There's a doctrine out that says you cannot break a law to enforce a law. That doesn't work. But it happens all the time in the land of make-believe. Why? Because they made this up. It's a side-by-side construct. It mirrors the original thing. It looks like the original thing. It seems like the original thing. It almost works the same as the original thing, but it's not the same as the original. The land of make-believe is around us everywhere. And we even have evidence of this land of make-believe right on us at most of the times, some of us at all times. We have ID cards. We have reward cards, library cards, bank cards, credit cards, passports. And on each and every one of these cards, there's something that is very much the same that we look at and we really don't give it a second thought. But our business names are on all of these items. Our business names. Now, stay with me here. Stay with me. I'm going to explain this. And I hope that you have a question or there's something that has your mind spinning after I tell you this. I'm not going to tell you to do anything. I'm just going to tell you I'm going to give you this information. And if you're curious enough, please look at this, okay? Now, when we talk about the United States, I want you all to really hear me good. There are 3 distinct United States. There are 3. Anybody care to name all 3 of them? Anybody here can name all 3? Want to take a shot at it? There are 3 separate United States. Can anybody tell me 2 of the 3? Just asking. Okay. Did everybody here know that there were 3 separate United States? If you don't say anything, I'm going to figure that nobody knew that. There are 3 United States. I'm going to tell you how this land of make-believe is working with at least one of them or two of them. 3 United States. There's the United States of America, which are 50 different geographical land masses that are called nation states. They have a latitude and longitude. Each of them have borders, and they have come together in a union stretching from coast to coast so that no nation state is landlocked. What do we mean by landlocked? You can't reach water. You're landlocked. You're stuck where you are. You have to have some kind of special permission to go through each and every territory just to get to water. That means you're landlocked. That means basically you're stuck. You're squeezed in. You can't do nothing. You need something too bad. If this state over here is mad at you, then you can't get it because they're not going to let you come through their border if you need to. They're not going to let anything come to you if they're upset with you. That's the reason why there was a union formed between the states that said, hey, we formed this union. We do have borders. We recognize each other's borders, but we have reciprocal agreements with one another that says you can pass through here, we can pass through there, and we don't have to show anything to do that. That stands to this very day. Okay? Now, that's the United States of America. There's 50 of them. 48 contiguous right here that we call continental United States of America, with 2 being Hawaii and Alaska that are somewhat removed but are recognized as part of this union. Okay. The second United States is the United States in Congress assembled. They're the ones that legislate federal laws. Okay? That's the second United States. Now, the third United States actually connects right to the second one. It's the United States located in the District of Columbia. You want to reference this? Title 28, U.S. Code, Section 3002. It tells us in that text that this third United States is a corporate made-up entity. It's an empty shell with the title called the United States. But now, here's the thing that we know, but we don't know all the way. And that is this. The United States, located in Washington, D.C., and described in Title 28 of the U.S. Code, Section 3002, is referred to in many, many different sections of law as the United States, or refers to people who live in the United States, or individuals who reside in the United States, or service personnel or workers who work and perform their service in the United States. Now, anybody who hears that might think, oh, the United States, well, Kansas, Kentucky, Alabama, Louisiana, New York, New Jersey, Texas, California, Utah, Iowa, Arkansas. No. When they refer to this quote-unquote United States, where the United States and Congress legislates federal law, it is separate and distinct from any of these other 50 states. Because when you're talking about the several states, now you're talking about Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, Illinois, Utah, Oregon, Wisconsin, Idaho, Nebraska. You get where I'm going. Okay. But you'll see most of the time, once again, this is made up, U.S. citizen. U.S. citizen. A lot of applications have that. Are you a U.S. citizen? Question mark. Most people will check that they are, or check yes. There's also another box there that allows you to check no, and it may say, please explain. We don't know how to explain that because once we see the United States, what we do, or U.S. citizen, is we associate New York, Vermont, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, etc. No. Because if that were the case, your application would have to say, are you a citizen of Florida? Are you a citizen of Kentucky? Are you a citizen of Michigan, Idaho, Nebraska, New Mexico, Arizona? That's why on these applications, first of all, they say, are you a U.S. citizen? Because that is defined by Title 28, the United States, that is housed and seated in Washington, D.C. That's the business name. The box next to that on most applications says, if you say no to this, please explain. I am a citizen or a national of New York, Nebraska, New Jersey, Florida. Or you could basically say, I am a Floridian. I am an Oklahoman or a Sooner. I am a New Yorker. Etc., etc. Now, the significance to this, follow me here, is that there are at least two systems at work here. There is the geographic place where you walk every day, where you find yourself every day, and where you call home. For all intents and purposes, this is where you're from. Okay. You got a home there, you got some place to stay there, you eat there, you walk there, you have people that you know there. There are places that you're familiar with, all in this place where you're from and where you're found mostly to be. Specifically that place. Not in D.C., also called the United States. Now, think about this for a moment, everybody. If you were a U.S. citizen, let's just say you were just a U.S. citizen and it was a blanket policy all over everywhere. Our driver's license would all say U.S. driver's license. But they don't say that, do they? They have individual states listed on there, don't they? Mm-hmm. New York driver's license, New Jersey driver's license, or motor vehicle, whatever. Pennsylvania motor vehicle commission license, whatever. Arkansas license, Florida license, Colorado license. All of them speak to a different location. Individual. To adopt United States citizenship is to enter the land of make-believe without knowing it, and then being subject to the rules of the land of make-believe. So if you are a U.S. citizen, then these are the rules that you will follow. These are the legislative laws that you'll follow, all 80 million of them. 80 million. It's a lot. These are the policies, these are the procedures, these are the agencies you'll answer to. You give us jurisdiction over here, over here, over here. We can write this about this, whatever you got going on, your family, your religion, the way you work, your employment, your education. Anything. We can legislate to it, and because we admitted that we were theirs, that we were under their jurisdiction, we just walked straight into the door and said, here I am, tell me what to do. But we didn't know this because, of course, association. We hear U.S. citizen, we think, oh, United States of America. No, they're two separate things. One is organic and geological. The other is abstract, and it's a made-up construct. It's an image. It's a thought that was given life. That they actually need people to actually work in order to make it a thing. Because without anybody being there, what is it? Nothing. What happened when everything got shut down from October through November? None of these entities were working, were they? Because there was nobody there. Message. If we look at it right, message. Look at that made-up thing over there now. They ain't got nobody in there operating it. They're not there. Do you see it? Can we see it? Message. Right. So, now that we have these distinctions, I want to give you a little bit more information about this, because think about this. The United States, located in Washington, D.C. And they say it's territories. Well, what about its territories? They're also called states. They're called federal states. But sometimes they just shorten it and say states of the United States. That's still not the 50 states. Those states happen to be Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa. Those are the federal territories that the United States, located in Washington, D.C., legislates to and exercises jurisdiction exclusively over, not the 50 several states. Okay. Now, a little bit more information about this. Individuals. The United States has its own constitution. That's right. District of Columbia has a constitution. It also has a charter. Because it's also a city-state. It's one of the three most powerful city-states. Has its own constitution. It's got its own legislative branch. That's right. Congress and the Senate. which is the House and the Senate, that's Congress. It has its own judicial branch, the U.S. Supreme Court, and it has its own executive branch, headed by the POTUS, as well as the staff and the administrative agencies. Okay, that's its makeup. But before it existed, the other states existed with the same exact makeup. So under the Supremacy Clause, each and every state has its own executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch, making it separate and distinct from any other place. So it has its own individual identity apart from what we call the United States. Okay? Then we have who is subject to the United States. Well, we have its territories, or its federal states, or like they like to call them, its states. Puerto Rico, Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa. And some more scattered here and there. But these are its federal states. Now, does federal overshadow the 50 continental states? No, it doesn't. Does it operate in the 50 states? Yes, it does. But does it have jurisdiction over the continental states? No, it doesn't have jurisdiction over the states, but it can exercise jurisdictions within the state. How so? A little legislative thing called the Buck Act, done in 1940, allowed the Congress to create a federal state within each and every one of the 50 states. The purpose was so that the services personnel, meaning the military, federal workers, meaning those who work under D.C., in D.C., who reside in D.C., or who are employees or workers within official capacity or agencies or organizations of D.C. that are spread out in all of the several states for the purpose of providing benefits and privileges to its own citizens who may find themselves working in these several states, such as military personnel who may have offices to recruit people to come into the federal military, or federal buildings where you have federal courthouses, federal offices, federal agencies. Very limited spaces within the several states, but DC can exercise control over those particular areas, those buildings, those offices, and those people who work in those offices or in those particular categories. Okay. So where I'm going with this is I'm hoping that as we're going down this road, something opens up just a little bit to give a sliver of light. Just a little sliver of light through the crack in the wall, through the drawn curtain, through the open door, just a little bit. So that we can see where we think we are versus where we really are. It's not what we think, people. It's not what we think. Everything that is happening is not a blanket policy that applies to everyone. The only way that it applies to everyone is if you yield yourself to it. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out and fight and argue and fuss. I'm not saying that. But you have to know, not think, not believe, not speculate, not assume, not presume. You must know. Where do you stand? Where are you located? Where do you call home? Is it Kansas? Is it Missouri? Is it Indiana? Is it Oregon? Is it New Mexico? Is it Texas? Is it Louisiana? Is it Arkansas? Connecticut? Maine? Where do you plant your feet? Where do your letters come to? What does it say on some of your ID cards? Does it say United States or does it say Michigan? And here's another little brain teaser. If the United States really meant all 50 of the states at once in that context, then how could the state of Kansas be the plaintiff in a lawsuit against the United States? Because you do realize that because of the union, one state cannot sue another state because they're already in a union. They have reciprocal agreements. And one of those reciprocal agreements is that we can't sue one another. We have to work it out. We have to come to some kind of compromise that works both for all the parties involved. We can't sue each other because that would go against the principles of the union. Can't do it. We have to come, we have to meet, we must talk, we've got to work it out. Sometimes we can have a mediator, an uninterested party. That's the federal zone. They can mediate, but they don't influence the decision. Okay. So what I'm saying to everybody here is we have to get, first of all, the information that we need. First and foremost, we've got to know the distinctions between what we're hearing, how it's being used, and then being able to determine which is which. Now, like I said, if the United States strictly meant all the 50 states, then Kansas could not sue the United States. Because Kansas, in essence, will be suing itself because it will be part of the United States. You can't sue yourself. That's a principle across all of the courts. You cannot go in there and say, hey, I'm John Doe and I'm suing John Doe. That's like me saying, okay, I'm in court and I'm here, but I'm going to sue my foot because it hurts and it won't stop. Impossible. What are we doing here? So if the United States, remember the style, United States, that's it, was a part of the 50 states, then Kansas could not sue it, and Kansas did sue it. Sued that entity, which means it's separate and distinct from the 50 states. There have been other lawsuits of individual states that have sued the United States, and then the United States has sued individual states. But if they're all together like that, it'd be impossible for them to sue because it's against the principles. House divided against itself cannot stand. So how can you sue your left arm if it's attached to your body? You can't. But you can sue somebody else. They're not attached to you. They're separate from you. They're distinct. They don't even have a union with you. That's why husbands and wives can't sue each other, because they're united in a union. But in the land of make-believe, you could. In the land of make-believe, it could happen if we don't have information so that we know what's happening in front of us. And this is how we find ourselves in the position that we're in today, where our relationships, family units, crumbling, education system, subpar, mediocre at best, our system that deals with our health and our well-being. A lot of question marks about that. Our system of finance, debt everywhere, obligations that are owed. Everybody owes this and owes that. There's tax on everything, when before it was not so. Food system. We are, quote unquote, the biggest consumer nation on the planet. The number one consumer nation on the planet, which puts this in a very unique position, because if we don't consume, then other nations don't eat. Remember that. But what do we consume? We consume high fructose corn syrup. We consume all different types of carbonic acids that are not good for us. All different types of tainted seasonings. And I'm not going to go through them right now. I'm not going to do that. Sugary substances. We know what they are. And other items that are not food. But if you read the labels, they say food-like. I wonder how that's defined. I wonder how that's grown, or if it's even grown. Now that we're here, I want to touch on one subject. Now that we have all this information, I'm going to put you on game. This is for our own information, our own know-how. All this is for, but I'm really hoping that some light will shine through in some dark places here. Give a little bit of direction to where we can go to see more. Now, you know how people, we have our licenses, we have our motor vehicle IDs, okay? A license to use a household good that belongs to us after we purchase it, but we have to have a license to use that household good. Well, first of all, that really don't make sense to me, but I'll tell you why it don't make sense in just a moment. But here's the thing. Everyone says, oh, in order for you to drive on the roads, which is an occupation title, driver, if you look it up in any law dictionary, will tell you it is an occupation. Driving is an occupation. A driver is someone who works by driving some type of conveyance, whether it's a bus, a tow truck, a limousine, a taxi cab, some type of delivery vehicle, public transportation on the roadways for the purpose of earning income. It's a business term. But they say in order for you to drive, you have to have a license. That is true. But in order to use the roads, you don't need that. But I'm not going to go all into that right now. but it is true. You don't need it. But you know that if you get out on this road and you don't have this ID card that says operator license, then there's going to be a problem. And basically, your household good, which is your automobile, that has been gifted over to the state through registration, is going to be towed and impounded, and the driver, whoever's driving, is going to get some kind of citations or what have you. It may have some court appearances to make, and there's going to be an amount to pay as a restoration fees and all court costs and all this other stuff that's going on. But why? Everybody, why? Not because it's the law. Not because of that. Let me explain this. And please hear me, because this is ultra important. The only reason why you need a license to do something or a permit to have something, which are household items or private items, is because everyone who uses the license has been breaking the law since their age of majority, and even before that. But before the age of majority, before the age of 18, 19, or 21, wherever it is in the several states, we got to pass. But once we reach the age of majority, there's something we're supposed to do. And when we don't do this, and we go out here and we do business, because remember, everything out here is business. It's not personal. Everything you look at today is a transaction of some kind. Out here, most places, it's all transactional. It's all business. There are records of business taking place, money changing hands, payment for this item, change being given back for the funds that were given, credit slips being run, other cards that have funds loaded on them being negotiated, checks being written, money orders being sold and sent out. All of these things, different remittance slips, different loan applications and promissory notes and warrants, which are also financial instruments, and application, which are securities. All of these things are floating around in a sea of commerce. What do we need in order to operate in the sea of commerce? Well, we need, number one, a business name. And number two, that business name, not us, but that business name, that empty shell, doesn't have a body, must be recorded where? In the county where you reside. Look it up in your county. Under fictitious, assumed, or trade names, registrations. Look them up in your county, whatever county you're in. Look up under your county rules, not the state, not the city, not the municipality, the county. The rules for operating an assumed, a trade, or a fictitious business name in the county. And it will describe your business name, which is the name that is on your Social Security card. It's the same name on your birth certificate. It's a business name. First, middle, last is a business name. It's a business name. Businesses have birth dates. I'll say that again. All businesses have birth dates. The typography of a business name is in all uppercase letters. Typography, GPO style manual will tell you that. Section 5.23. It'll tell you that. Typography, it's not the spelling. The spelling is correct. It's the typeset of the letters that is off when they're all uppercase. They don't identify anybody as a natural being. They identify an artificial entity that is not living and that needs living people in order to operate it, which therefore tells us what? That the rules, the laws, the regulations of these so-called lawmakers and judges of the law and executioners of the law only operate over dead things. And if we connect ourselves to those things without the proper recordings in place, we do so at our own peril. But we didn't know. How many of us learned this in school? Exactly. I didn't hear anybody chiming on it. Because I can guarantee all of us on here, just right now, I can almost guarantee with my bottom dollar that none of us were told this when we were learning anything in grade school, elementary school, middle school, junior high, high school, even college. Because we were taught how to operate in the system. But here's the thing. If we operate in a system where there are rules and regulations and policies, procedures, so-called laws of governance in place, and we don't play by the rule, we don't do what is necessary for us to have our protections, and guess what? We have none. Then we are called criminals, lawbreakers. We're what? We're actually committing misdemeanor offenses, which are breaks of the law, breaches of the peace, of the dignity. But who told us this? Nobody told us that once we record our business name as an assumed, as a trade name, as a fictitious business name properly, and we have it indexed with the county, and they ask us, who owns this property? Yes, because that name is your property, belongs to you. If it isn't indexed in the county, then guess what? There is no owner of the property listed, which means that, oh, this property is abandoned by presumption because there's nothing to say that it isn't. So if it's abandoned, then that means that nobody is administering, which means that judge can now do whatever he wants to in that court because there is no owner of that property. So he can do it and ride it until the wheels fall off because there ain't nobody coming to claim and say, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that because that ain't yours. The only reason you need a license or a permit to do anything is because otherwise, if you didn't have it and you weren't if your business was not recorded somewhere where it should have been, you're going to be breaking the law. What does the license do? It gives you kind of like a temporary pass on some things. You get some leniency on some things. You get a privilege sometimes to get out of jail free or to walk away without going to court or to not be stripped of certain things that you receive that you may need. All because of what? One thing that we weren't told. And this exists on many different levels. It exists at the state level, it exists at the federal level, but where does it have the most power? At the county. And we were never told. But all of this other stuff mirrors the original thing, but it ain't the original thing. The states, under the Buck Act, have federal states, or I should say, business entities called the state of, registered, and then mirroring the geographic location of the organic state. But those business names, guess what, are what? Recorded. Which is why they can exist where they are, do what they do, exercise jurisdiction over their own, and all of those others that want to just volunteer, so to speak. And if you didn't know you were volunteering or you thought that you were being coerced, then there's something that they have called plausible deniability. What does that mean? Oh, well, you did it, and we thought that you were okay with it. We had no idea that you didn't want to be treated this way because you volunteered. And once you volunteered, well, we just basically took your word for it. You wanted to be over here with us. Because guess what? And they're not going to tell you this. Your business name ain't recorded anywhere, so you're doing business unlawfully. You're breaking the law, which means that we can give you permits, we can give you licenses, we can offer them to you, we can tell you you need them, but we're not going to tell you why. We can regulate your family. You know why? Because your family does business. You need a marriage license. Ooh. You mean tell me you need a license to be with somebody? Only if you choose to, only if you listen to it, only if you allow them to convince you that this is so. Some people won't do without it. To have your tax exemption, oh yeah, you need permission for that. Become this kind of entity right here. But don't read the fine print, because on some of them, you are actually free. On some of them, you ain't free. But you can think you are, but you ain't. Why? Why do all these things come at us, and why are they offered to us? Because we were not informed of something within this land of make-believe where everything seems to kind of be together and look like the genuine article, but when you really begin to see the light, you begin to see that, hey, that says Uchi, not Gucci. That says Tim, but it don't say Timberland. It says Tim''. Now, we might call them Tims, but that's not what's written on the shoe. Properly, it's Timberland. What's that? You know, Timberland. He wrote that in a magic marker. It don't even look like no Timberland. Little Tims on them. All right, whatever. What I'm trying to get us to understand and see right here, right now, today, is that this game has existed for a very long time, and it still exists. I'm not telling you to believe what I'm saying, but I'm giving you information. And if you are so inclined to find out for yourself, put your pride aside. We all been got. We all been fooled. We all been kind of played around with. Okay? All of us got it. None of us exempt. Not one. But it's never too late to realize, to open our eyes, to take a really good look, to sit still for a moment and just listen. Look, concentrate, and focus. We get it. we'll see it. The politics, everybody, we see the politics, we hear about it. We hear about what's going on. But our first thought is, look at what's going on over there. Look at what they're doing. They shut down the government. They're hurting everybody, blah, 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 blah. But look beyond the surface of things. If we knew, entities need people in order for them to work. No people, those things don't work. So those people who are giving these energies to these entities that really ain't serving us the best, but yet they are giving us some kind of service, but it might be a gourmet meal, but it's on top of the inside of a trash can lid. Yeah, you got your baked potato, got your vegetables, you got your meat, you got your bread, you got your glass with a beverage in it. But it's on the inside of a garbage can lid. Who wants to eat off of that? I don't care how good it is or how good it looks. Who wants to eat off of that? That's the kind of service we're getting. Now, I can understand we say, well, if we don't get that, we can't complain because we won't have nothing. In that system, how true. But why? Why do they do this? We couldn't figure it out. Well, why are they doing this? How come they're always taking everything? Why are they taxing us? Why are they telling us, hey, let us experiment on you. Let's put this in you and see what happens. Hey, stay apart from each other. Hey, stay in the house. Don't go there. Hey, we want your house, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take this land right here. We're going to run a highway right through it. Then we're going to build condos over there. We ask ourselves in our minds, why does this happen? I'm going to tell you the very one reason why it does happen, and I did say it before, but I really want you to get this. Criminals are not given any respect. And what we were not told is by not doing this one thing with our business name in a system which is a commercial business system, when we didn't record the business that is our property with our county, have it indexed, and then have proof of that we are in compliance, we are called lawbreakers. We're called criminals. They don't actually throw us in jail for that, but they throw us all around, confuse us. They don't have to tell us anything anymore. They don't have to be upfront and honest with us. You know why? Because we're not being that. And as the golden rule says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So therefore, since we were not told that this was a crime, that what we were doing is a crime, we're thinking we're going to work every day, we're making our money, we're being taxed, we're complying with that, we're paying our bills, we're keeping up, we're at peace with everybody, but we're in a commercial system that has a requirement that we have not been told about. And it's all across the board. So no matter where we go, what we do, if we don't have an index of what is our property, which is that name, the one in your Social Security account, the one that's on your birth certificate, on your driver's card, on your library card, on your credit card, on your debit card, on your gift cards, on membership cards of organizations that you may be with, military ID cards, civil service IDs, all of these other things, professional corporation IDs. It's everywhere. Look at how many accounts they're getting us on when they say, hey, you haven't recorded that. That name hasn't been recorded. You're doing business unlawfully and illegally. And now we don't have to give you access to the court for remedies. It's going to be very hard. We're going to require you to have a lawyer because you don't have good standing to come before this court as though you have done equity. Your hands are not clean. So what are you talking about? This is what goes through our mind. What are they talking about? Something that we would never talk. This is the land of make-believe, my friends. This is the land of make-believe. Everything is business, not personal. So in order to do business the right way and have your rights and protections in place, because we are organic, we are the original, we have to do as the Romans do when we're in Rome. That way we can live peaceful lives. And if anybody comes at us, then we do have access and we do have remedy. And I wouldn't tell you something that I myself don't know, because I do know this to be a fact. So my friends, the one thing that we can do to identify where we're located, what jurisdiction we are within and that we work with, which jurisdiction also has the obligation to protect. And which jurisdiction we claim our rights in and have reciprocal agreements with other nation states in a union of states. We're no longer on the outside wondering why. Why did they do George Floyd the way they do? Why did they do Trayvon? Why did they do Yusef Hawkins the way they do? Why did they do Eric Garner that way? Why did they do the lady who was in her apartment cooking on the stove? Why did they do that to her? How come they always seem to get off with a slap on the wrist and then they can lose their job at this department and go over here and get hired at another department? They're not going to tell us because it's gone too far. It's gotten really ridiculous and out of hand, and they can't stop the forward progression because to do so would cause the whole thing to just derail, be chaotic, and that wouldn't really be great. But if we know and we do what is required, then we have all authority, we have all dominion, we have everything we need and the backing to be able to throw the brakes on this train, slow it down, even stop it if we need to, and say, hey, this is it. Those people up in Michigan, I can't remember the town, but I will tell you this, they fired their whole municipal staff. I remember telling everybody this, that they made a bet, the municipal officials made a backdoor deal with a Chinese company, with that Chinese company to build on this land warehouses for people to work in. They didn't share this with the people of that municipality. And when the people caught wind of it and saw how much it was going to cost and how much these officials pocketed, and that they did not say anything to the people, you know what they did? They told them, you're going to be fired within a week. You all are going to be gone. And they laughed. You know that they went to the county? The very same people, they went to the county and they put into the county index a protest. You know what? Because they all had themselves recorded, their business names recorded down there. Because when you vote, guess what? It's business. It's the business of electing or hiring officials. But what if it were not recorded properly? We don't have any recourse. Nobody respects the guilty. Nobody respects the guilty. So with that, my friends, I'm going to land it there. Now, everyone is unmuted, but this is the land of make-believe. This is where you are. Make no mistake about it. This is real. But there is a way to set yourself apart and to exercise your power, your dominion, and be a steward, which is our first charge to be over this planet.
Trying to get some rap. Trying to get some bud and a rap. Go back upstairs.
I'm not sure.
All right, we can hear that in the background. All right. It's all right. It's all right. But mute out there, please. Thank you. All right, everybody. I've landed there. The floor is open for your questions or your comments. I don't really expect that there will be many of them, and that's okay. But I believe it's very important for you to know what you're dealing with and the game that is being played, because it's time for that to stop. And the only ones that can stop it is us.
Xtra-Hype.
You got it, brother.
I mean, I've been listening, but I've been, I guess you could say, calculating and kind of formulating a few things here. And, at the end of the day, what I'm noticing is that when it comes to these conversations, you know, it's hard to pin down the matter of the road. You know what I'm saying? I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if when we're on these roads, or I guess you could say what we're using to drive on these roads, the condition of the road is set for a certain kind, like, how a race track might be in some of those old games we used to play, whereas one track might be, asphalt, you need a bald tire or something like that. But then you have, the rain that ends up happening. So you need tires that have certain treads on them. You know what I mean? These are the circumstances by which we have to operate every day. And not all of us know the signs and I guess you could say factors that go into when you use the different equipment, the tools that we have at our disposal in society. It's like we're all running around trying to build a house, but all we have is a hammer. You know what I mean? So we're
Mm-hmm.
we're we're confused a lot of the time. We're misguided other times, and we're just outright wrong other times. You know what I mean? So we get scrutinized, and we get friggin' called this or that, and
Mm-hmm.
even when you start talking about certain things a certain kind of way, it just shows, not to say you don't know anything, but it shows that you're coming from a perspective that I guess you could say um, has been proven to be, misguided, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? Once you come from a certain perspective, it requires a bit more of not your understanding, but your perspective has to be clearer. You have to know what tools you're using and why. You know what I'm saying? Not all the time does a ball peen hammer come in handy, but when it does, boy howdy, it's just what you needed. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it's just to say that we do have to learn the rules of the game, but it's the kind of game where it's the rules are hidden and then they're also changed at every whim. So, it becomes this battle of this feedback loop that ends up happening when people like us start to figure things out, and, we get a little bit down the line, and then it kind of falls apart because, oh, now there's no more of this role on this tax form or something like that. I don't know. There's levels to how I've seen the evolution of processes when people start to kind of do things a certain type of way. It might be for one reason, might be for another. Who exactly knows? But what ends up happening is that the rules change. The like, I don't know. You can go into like the new bills that come into play. It's like we celebrate Black Friday, but we don't know the day that a new law goes into effect. You know what I mean? It's like we're
Mm-hmm.
unfocused, we're distracted from the tools in society that are actually given to us. We just gotta remember that it's our tool belt. You know what I'm saying? We gotta go to like,
Mm-hmm.
the library and look up some current events that, actually have to do with the situation, break down all of the factors that may or may not go with your argument so that the spectrum can be fully analyzed. You know what I mean? When it comes to, these, like, I don't know, different situations where, like, I was just looking at one of my favorite people on YouTube, the lead attorney. He was talking about, well, he had a video where he shows a video of some guy in someplace. He shot in the air at a trunk or treat event where people were giving out candy, and he
Hmm.
got into some sort of a verbal altercation with someone, and he ended up shooting into the air, eh, 10 rounds. All the people subdued him. It turns out this guy was an off duty police officer who was the son and nephew of two different attorneys, right? And what he was initially charged with was upwards of 50 years in prison, it could have been, like at max. Minimum, he could have been doing like 20 years if the charges were legitimately administered. But he ended up getting 5 years of probation. So it's levels to what ends up happening in the system, because you never really know what's going to end up happening with you when you go into the system. But once we start seeing these types of situations, we start to ask questions. And the more scrutiny we add upon the system, the more bonkers we start to look, because now we have to play this role of no longer being the quiet, how you say, uh, implicit stranger. You know what I mean? You start to be the clear opposition to say, hey, or, at very least, opposition to say, hey, I don't think this is right. Like, I don't know, in the spirit of what might have been considered January 6th. I don't want to go too deeply into that, but the people. They look at the Constitution and say, "Hey, a well-armed militia is necessary to prevent tyranny." And it's like, all right, if we read things word for word, then we get one interpretation. But then if we start to reference and cross reference and more deeply examine the things that have come since, like our policies and these things, they start to obscure our original foundational documentations and rules and regulations. So now we're kind of fighting a fight on two fronts now, where the everyday situations that we go through, they don't exactly have anything to do with, what we're doing. It's more of how we're doing it. And then the way that we, ought to be doing things, they're so kind of convoluted, and they're so all over the place that it becomes easier to just do things the way that we do them now. Go do your 9 to 5, don't say anything, and we'll be fine. You know what I mean? But we get to these points where there's black sites in Chicago where people are just taken and hidden. I don't know whether it's under the rule of like they're illegal immigrants or their visas are up or something, but there's clear and consistent human rights violations happening. And if we can't at least administer checks and balances to protect our human rights, then why do we even have a system to begin with? You know what I mean? What is this system that we're even dealing with? So, I can go on. I can go on, but I want to try to put together some slides and things so that I can make a presentation that, offers suggestions for solutions to how we can migrate, or I guess you can say, you know, uh, re- replace the system, if you will, to something more in the image of prosperity and togetherness and all the good things. I'll land it there.
Okay. Okay. Very, very detailed points that you gave there. But let me take this and break it down to its organic compound and make it just make this very simple. The basic step that we've all missed is not that we have to identify or become a part of a system that is doing something not so great and not so on board or not so on point. We don't have to go ahead and become a part of this. We have to be recognized as to who we are. We are doing business under a business title that we all have, which gives us standing in a commercial field. Now we have the authority, we have the access to the protection, access to everything that we need, because we have now taken our token, which we would use on a game board, and placed it on the game board instead of pretending we had a token there and wondering why we never get anywhere. Basically, that's where we are. Have we been taught this? No. Have we been given this information? Probably not. In schools, definitely not. In town hall meetings? Nope. In church? Nope. In hospitals? Definitely not. But it's there for us. Therefore, if we want to start to get our respect, we want to get what is rightfully ours and keep what is rightfully ours, and be able to handle our business the way that we see fit, as long as it doesn't encroach or harm anybody else, then we can do so. But without this bit of information, all of us have been walking around here wondering why is this happening? And we haven't been told. Why do we face evictions the way that we do? And by the way, those are illegal the way they do them. But do we have any recourse? Nope. Just that one little thing throws a gear and throws a monkey wrench in all the gears. We never knew why. Well, here we have it. If you'd like to know any more about this, I would suggest you go to countyoffice.org. Select your county from that index. You have all the counties listed there, just about. And in your county, look up assumed trade name or fictitious business name. One of those three. And read the policies and rules regarding the registration or recording of your property, which is your business name. As we said, typography is the all capital letters. That is a business entity. We all got one. When it's not recorded, it's a criminal act. You go out here and do business, it's actually a criminal act under a bunch of rules and regulations that just seem ridiculous. Exactly. So with that, my friends, we'll land it there. This has been a nice in-depth walk, but I think it's necessary for us because coming up next year, it's going to be an even wilder ride. We need something to stabilize us. And I hope we'll all take a look at this and move forward whenever we can, whenever we will. I think it'll be beneficial. But moving forward, I want to thank you all for joining us. Our new listeners want to thank you for coming on and spending a little time with us just to hear some information from poverty to prosperity to see how we go from one to the other. And I want to let everybody else know that tonight at 8 p.m. is King David with Belief Systems. So as soon as we end this podcast, make sure you come back in at 8 p.m. I hope all of you who are in that class have done your homework. King David has given out homework, so I hope that you all have your homework done and ready so that you can move to the next level in his class in Belief Systems. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., we got Miss Carol with the prayer call right here on the network, 7 a.m. Then at 6 p.m., you got Grace Space with Jada and Carrie. And then at 7:30 p.m., we got the Pink Sofa, once again with Miss Carol Lucille. And that will be our lineup for tomorrow. I want to thank everybody for coming out. And as is customary, and as usual, flow, focus. Brother, you have the last word and take
Yes,
us out.
sir. Wow. Well, I just want to say, man, thanks to everyone for showing up, hanging out with us and having a listen. Because at the end of the day, the conversation is necessary, man. We got to get the word out here so we can figure out what the heck is going on, man. But I will leave us with these 8 points that I came up with here. Just, I guess you could call them operating principles, so to speak, right? One is we don't participate in self-oppressing narratives. Okay, we're not virtue signaling or groveling, things like that. All right, and we do not fund or enforce our own cages. Okay, we measure success by extraction reversed, not by feelings. Okay, we don't ask for permission or forgiveness. Right. We protect the protector class first, okay? We name the mechanisms over and never the race, religion, or tribe, right? Because it's not necessary. We starve the beast with every transaction and we leave a trail for others, not a manifesto. Because these are operating points. These are ways where we can say, when we come together, the scrutiny is on how we operate and communicate with each other. Not so much what perspectives we come from or what, I guess you could say race, creed, or color, or nationality. It's not so much the why, but it's what comes from it. We're judged by the fruits of our labor, right, guys? So with that, I'll just say, listen, at the end of the day, we love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So join us next time, guys. We'll be back here Friday for another cooler talk, right here on the Extra Hype podcast, Extra Hype Connection podcast, on the cooler talk, on the Grown Folks Talking, Express Yourself Progressive Podcast Network. So until next time, guys, good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.